This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose. Hello, I'm Maritza Barone. Welcome to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast. Has there ever been a moment in your life where you heard, read, or were told something that you simply could not unhear? Something that made you stop in your tracks and helped you to see the world differently in some way, a better way. On this podcast, we create those life-changing moments for you through interviews with some of the world's most profound people around the globe. We explore groundbreaking ideas in health and well-being.
What we're really doing is getting to the root cause of your symptoms. And often we find that that is an emotional block that we have been carrying around in our body that's become almost crystallized and created a physical symptom.
Relationships.
And for women as well, when I talk about respect, it's called respecting yourself, which is don't overgive. Women will tend to put themselves one down, and then wake up at 40 and go, wait a second, I am woman, I deserve respect.
Personal and professional transformation.
This is true of any skill. You only develop it by doing it. And so, if you don't get out there and just start doing it and being a bit rough around the edges at the beginning, you can't work on your craft. And so it can't turn into something.
Spirituality.
Because I think when we know who we really are, we think we're our name and our body and our form and our hair and our clothes and our skin and but when we know who we really are as infinite beings, we're free.
And so much more. So settle in. This might just be a big day for you where you hear something that changes your life in the most transformative way. Welcome back to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast. Get ready for this one, guys. Whether or not you believe in the afterlife, psychics, and spirit, this mind-blowing conversation with one of Australia's most highly rated psychics, David the Medium, will have you on the edge of your seat. David has the unique gift of being able to connect with spirit after they cross over. And as a psychic, he can see and predict the future. He's really well known for his yearly predictions, some of which he has shared with us today in this conversation. Looking forward to 2024. David can see, hear, and feel people who have passed and relay on messages from them to us. And he actually performed a reading for me during this chat that floored me. He knew names of my family members who had been passed for years. He was making internal family jokes that they would make and just relayed such beautiful messages that were life-changing and just gave so much clarity. I wasn't sure if I'd actually share the reading or not, as a lot of personal things came up that weren't actually about me and it wasn't my place to share. So I have chosen to share parts of my reading that applied to me on the YouTube version of this episode. So if you want to catch that, you can click the link in the show notes to the YouTube version and hear my part of the reading. So in this conversation, we talked about how David became David the Medium, how he connects with spirit. He answered listener questions that had been sent through, such as what's the meaning of life and what happens when we die? And he gave us his spine-tingling global 2024 predictions about politics, interest rates, cryptocurrency, and so much more. Get ready to be blown away, my friends. As always, tell me what your biggest takeaway was. I want to hear it. I want to keep the conversation going. Tag us and share this episode so that others can hear it. Thanks for listening. Enjoy this conversation. Welcome, David the Medium, to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast.
Maritza, it's so lovely to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's David the Medium. So the Medium is your surname, right?
I'm going to hyphen my surname. I'm thinking I should change it to D, medium or something like that. Make it the Medium. Yeah. Even people that I've known for 15, 20 years, if they're even referring to me amongst their friends, they're like David, and then they're like the Medium, because everyone just, there's only one David the Medium, I guess.
It's quite interesting, and it's so clever from people knowing you from a brand perspective to simplify things and be known as the medium, and people know exactly what you do and the outcomes that they're going to get from working with you. Was that a planned thing, or was that something that you did by chance?
Well, it was really funny actually. When I first started out professionally, I used to call myself David A. Psychic Medium. My middle name was Andrew, so I just used to be David A. But every time I would message people or call people, I used to be like, "Oh, it's David, the medium." So I was like, "Why don't I just call myself a David the medium? Like, it just makes more sense than David A. Psychic Medium, and it's not as much as a tongue twister." So it kind of just evolved from there.
Yeah, it's clever. Well, you've got a really solid following now, a community that believes in you, loves you. You've done, I can't even guess, thousands of readings, I'm sure, over your career, and you've really changed people's lives. I mean, people think about what a medium does, and really what a medium does, in my perspective, is help people on a path when they're feeling like they need some clarity, or they need some connection to loved ones who have passed, or need something in their life that's going to make them feel more centered and balanced. And, that's a special gift that you give people, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so incredibly fortunate not only to love what I do and enjoy every day that I get to sit down with people, but as you mentioned, to have such a loyal, connective, engaged audience. Like, I'm completely blessed by that because when I started out as David the Medium, like I never really imagined or never really planned for it to be something as maybe as big as it's become. And like I said, I'm completely just grateful and blessed by that because it's organic and it's fun and I love being able to do it. And even as you mentioned, the ability to have such a positive impact on people when I'm able to sit down with them. And it's something that even for me, I've not that I took it for granted at the start, but I just never took into account sort of the amazing impact that it can have. And I'm just, like I said, forever blessed and just incredibly grateful to be doing what I'm doing and continue doing what I'm doing as my cat in the background as well.
I must say, for everyone listening right now, you have a blurred background, and you can watch this on YouTube if you want. But the blurred back, all I saw was this shadow that had come through, and I was like, I think we have visitors already.
That spirit is hanging out with me all the time. You brought them forward with you.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah. Well, as we're saying, you do create positive impact in people's lives in so many ways. And I want to know how you got so good at it. I want to know the pathway that it's taken you to get here, because I find it fascinating, because I believe you, for the first 25 years of your life, didn't tap into these gifts that you had. And I think, how long have you been really working on them now? How many years?
Yeah, nearly 13. Yeah.
13. And for really 13 years, it's a long time, but it's also quite exceptional to see what you've done within that time frame, and the people that you've worked with in that time. So can you share with us the journey it took you to get here?
Yeah, I mean, it really is quite a unique journey because a lot of people that work in sort of this kind of space or have more of a spiritual or high power understanding, a lot of them have known since they were children, like because they used to wake up, spirits at the end of their bed, or they used to see, hear, or feel things as a child. And for me, that never happened. Like, it wasn't something that I was aware of. I wasn't raised religious. I didn't necessarily have a view of the afterlife. So it was something that was always within me. I definitely believe that, because I believe every single person does have the ability to be able to do what I do. There's nothing, inverted commas, special about me per se. But I was very black and white, and I was a very stereotypical man. Like, what I see is what I see, and everything else doesn't exist. Like, not to denigrate my whole species, but we know what boys are like when it comes to spirituality. And I have a legal background. So I was working in legal for really 20 years, 12 years in the corporate sort of space. My last job was in criminal prosecution as a paralegal. But when I was 24, so, about 13 years ago, I'm in my mid-30s at the moment, but I just started a new job, and there was this wonderful lady there that I instantly connected with, and we were having very deep sort of spiritual chats within, days of knowing each other. And she asked me, she's like, "Have you ever been to a medium?" And my response was, well, no, because I mean, I don't really believe in it. I mean, it's not for me to say it's not real. I've never experienced it. I can't form an opinion like that, but I just don't have the interest or belief in it. And she was saying, I know this lady, she's amazing. You really should go see her. And at that stage, I was like, well, you know what do I have to lose? Like, my grandfather at that point in my life had crossed over, And I was like, well, if this is real, then she'll be able to connect with him. And I went in honestly so obnoxious and so arrogant about it. Like I was lovely to her, of course, because she's just doing her thing. But, in my mind, I was like, well, if she asks any questions, she's only getting yes or no answers. Like, I'm not going to give her anything. I'm going to test her, that real kind of like, well, I'll let her show me, what I mean, like that mindset. And honestly, she blew my mind away. The things that she was bringing up and the conversations that she was relaying and the things that she was talking about, not only in my life, but also my family. I was kind of like, oh, okay, that's unique. Like, then the mind ticks in, because for those of us that don't have experience with it, and maybe a lot of your followers haven't, and listeners haven't had experience with mediumship per se either. Like, it really is quite a unique concept to kind of try and grasp instantly when your mind tries to find the logic or the reasoning around what's happening or what people are saying to you. And so that was definitely my mindset. And she said to me in that reading, she goes, you realize you can do this yourself. And I instantly dismissed it. I was like, oh, there's no way. I can't do this. I've never done it before. I have no understanding about it. And long story short, she ran a mentoring class. She asked me to come along to a mentoring class. Very casual. It was in the outer suburbs on a Wednesday night around the lounge room. It was very cool. And long story short, turns out I did have an ability to be able to do it quite naturally. And I did mentoring with her for around 2 years, once a week. And in the meantime, I was still working corporate, still living, the, inverted commas, normal life of having a 9-to-5 job and doing this and doing this and doing this. But it honestly just kind of grew from there. And as fate would have it, the universe threw me in different directions in 2016. So even though I was working in corporate, I was still reading maybe 1 or 2 people a week, in the evenings or on the weekend, and ended up finishing up in corporate, and mediumship honestly just exploded. And it wasn't anything that I necessarily planned to do like that, because I had that sort of mindset still that, no, I have to have a job and I have to have the routine and I have to have the structure. We're all taught to believe at a very younger age that, we kind of have to be individuals and be unique, but still fit into the box, which, a lot of people I know definitely feel the pressure or the expectation around. And I took the risk, I guess, per se, but, risk is probably the wrong word, because for me, it felt like a risk at the time, absolutely, but it really is just a natural progression. When we're authentic to our abilities or to our own internal mindsets or to our goals, then everything will flow naturally. And 7 years later, I'm so, as I mentioned, fortunate and blessed to be where I am now.
So you say we've all got these gifts. How do you turn them on? How do you turn them up?
Well, I say every single person can do what I do, yes, because we're all souls and spirits having a human experience. We're not humans having a spiritual experience. We're all somewhere before we came here. And I have now the knowledge and the very strong set belief that we're all going to go somewhere after this. So I say everybody can sing. Maybe not everyone sounds like Pavarotti to start with, but some people are natural operatic singers. Some people maybe need singing lessons. And if it is something that you're wanting to develop, I first and foremost believe wanting to be able to develop means that you're 99% of the way there, because it's all about mindset and it's all about openness to it. And I think every person at any level, and I'm sure you'll agree as well, we all have intuition. We all have very strong gut feelings on things. There's circumstances within our lives where we'll be thinking of someone and then instantly we'll get a text message from them. It is all connected. Everything is energy, and energy is all connected. So if it is something you're wanting to develop, not only as I was saying, will that sort of naturally just open up within you, but the universe will definitely throw signs and symbols your way to assist in your development. So, it could even be, in my example, there could be a medium who comes into your life, or you could even see workshops, or even just people on the street that will say things to you. It really is quite unique. And it really is like a muscle. The more that you flex it, the stronger that it will get. So the most important thing is that every time you've got a gut feeling, every time you've got this intuitive sense, pay attention to it, listen to it, act on it. Because like I said, it's like training a muscle. The more that you work it, the stronger that it's going to get.
That's the word that's coming to me the most, is listen. You have to create the space, I suppose, in your life where you can receive information, because if we're constantly busy and on our phones and working and occupied, I suppose the space isn't there to connect. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think one of the faults that humans have as a a generalization is we're very good at talking, we're very good at offering opinions, we're very good at sort of seeing everything, but very rarely do we actually just center ourselves and listen to what's going on around us. And if any of us take the opportunity just to kind of sit there for even 5 minutes and just pay attention to what you're feeling and what you're hearing, it's like opening up a portal to a different world. It really is. So listening is really crucial.
A friend of mine recently was just sitting around and not on his phone or not doing anything. He's just sitting there and staring into space, not watching a television. And I walk past and I'm like, what are you doing?
Exactly. How rare is that though? Like we never see it.
He said, I'm listening. I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's actually cool. But it's even just allowing your brain to catch up to the stimulation that we have on a daily basis. But I found it fascinating that he was just sitting there listening to whatever dropped in. And I think we need to do that as a species more, to just center ourselves and receive what is out there for us to hear and drop in.
No, and absolutely. I mean, you make such a great point as well, because the environment that we're all in at the moment is so overstimulated. Like it is 24/7 information, 24/7 noise. At any one time, you can be juggling 10 different things. Like we've got the TV on in the background while we're also on our phone, while we're also having a conversation with someone. We're also, our mind is thinking about something else. Like we have evolved too quickly in that sense that even the spiritual human side of us just can't keep up. So to be able to take that moment for yourself, it honestly is, the best sort of spiritual practice you can do, but also for your own physical, mental, emotional
Yeah, exactly.
health. To be able to sit down and tune out for 5 minutes at least.
Chill the hell out. Exactly.
Literally chill the hell out.
How do you hear, see, feel? How does it come to you?
So I say for me, it's kind of like tuning in to a radio station. Now, it is all within my mind, absolutely. But when I do sit down with someone one-on-one, it's kind of like the floodgates really just open. So as you mentioned, I have the ability to see, hear, and feel. So seeing for me is I will see images within my head of things that are personal to me, but I know that it will relate to you. It's kind of like watching a home movie. So sometimes I'll see glimpses of people's lives or their past like I was there myself. When I read someone, if I close my eyes, like you can picture the exact same room or scenario that you're in, but with my eyes closed, suddenly I'll see shadows or even people behind them, and that will be their loved ones. Hearing is I can hear voices, I can hear noises, Spirit will play music for me. When Spirit speaks to me directly, it kind of is like using my own internal voice, but sometimes I'll hear their voices and it kind of sounds like they're down the end of a hallway yelling out at me. And feeling is I can feel emotions. I can feel if someone unfortunately had a physical ailment, I'll feel that. But I can also tune into the emotions of spirit, like when they're relating to stories, how that made them feel and what's the personal connection with the person that I'm reading for. So it all sort of comes together as one sort of big jigsaw puzzle. And it is a game of translation as well, but it really is, the only word I can use is magical. Like after even 13 years of knowing that I've been able to do it and 7 years working full time, every single reading I do is like a brand new experience. And it's, every single reading is so different and I'm still learning. This is something that I know that it's not possible to know every single thing and, not possible to become, the top level of, suddenly I've learned everything that I can possibly learn. Like every reading for me is always teaching me something new as well.
And you can turn it on and off, can you? Do you feel spooked ever?
No, I've got very strong boundaries. So I allow spirit to connect when I'm in, the space of being able to sit down and read for someone, but in public or in a social situation, my barrier is right up. So spirit, and they're very respectful as well. Like they know when I'm, inverted commas working and when I'm not as well. But I've never felt spooked with anyone that I've ever read. I'm only connecting with their loved ones and people that were so special to them as well. And they're only ever coming forward with messages of love and support and validation and clarity and guidance. So it's always with such a positive, high vibrational perspective. So yeah, it's not spooky at all. It sounds spooky when you think about it,
but they're coming from a place of love. So it makes more sense.
Exactly.
Have you ever been, I've heard other psychics say, they've been standing in the street or standing in a queue and they're just have to speak to that person in front of them and give them a message, because there's this persistent tap on their shoulder by a loved one that must get this message across. Have you ever had those experiences maybe early on in your career when you didn't have the strong boundaries?
Yeah, definitely at the start, because I used to look at it as kind of like more of a party trick, if that makes sense. It's sort of, because as I said, when I was beginning, I never believed that my journey and my pathway would take me into psychic mediumship. So I just used to be, the man who works at the law firm who also happens to read spirits. So I'd be out in public, a story that I love telling, and I'd have a few drinks and I'd be out in a nightclub on Saturday night just hanging out, and after a few drinks, the barrier comes right down, and suddenly I'm starting, reading people around me, being like, it sounds so arrogant as well, because you want to come from a place of support and love. But when you're sort of reading strangers in a nightclub, it can come across a little bit weird, to be very fair. But it was always with positive connection and wanting to pass on messages of love. But it was a bit of a weird venue to maybe be doing it. But and there was also circumstances as well, because I used to commute into the city on the train, and one story that I constantly remember, I was sitting down, just like everyone else, probably on my phone. And in my voice, in my head, pardon me, I heard a voice say, "Oh, look at my daughter, isn't she beautiful?" And I looked up, and there was a lovely girl standing sort of in front of me down the aisle. And I didn't know in my head whether it was real or not. I'm like, is this me thinking it, or is it just actual spirit coming forward? And I asked in my head, I said, well, if this is real, show me, prove that I'm connecting with whoever you may be. And he said, she's wearing my ring. I think it was like she inherited that. And I was like, okay, because I couldn't see her hands. And right after that voice finished saying it, she lifted up her hand to brush away her hair, and she had this beautiful old ring on. And I was like, oh. But it wasn't even necessarily wanting me to pass that message on to her. It was just the element of spirit connecting with me. So it's fascinating.
It is so fun. I'm just sitting here or listening to you and just imagining what life you lead. It's absolutely fascinating for us to think that we can do this too if we really want to, and so comforting, I think, for people who have lost loved ones, to know that they can connect with them and they're not gone, they're still around. Do you connect with loved ones in your life regularly that you've lost?
So I can't talk to them like I can talk to people that I read for. A lot of mediums don't have the ability to actually communicate with their own blood or their own sort of personal connections. And some can, but not all. And the way that I sort of phrase that, the most important people in my life, like, my maternal grandmother, my mother, my brother, like, unfortunately, my maternal grandmother has crossed over, but if any of those three people crossed over, and, inevitably, unfortunately, one day they will, I would want to spend 24/7 with them in my head. Like, I wouldn't be living my own life. I wouldn't be, going down my journey. I just wanted to be in a different dimension, connecting with them. So I think in that sense, it's more of a sort of a protective barrier that the universe sort of places to stop you from disconnecting from your own journey in a lot of ways. But that being said, I can definitely always feel them around, and they do leave signs for me as well to show me that they're there. But even when I read, clients of mine, the messages that will come forward, I can even relate to my own life sometimes, and I kind of take that as sort of an indirect message from my own loved ones, because it does sometimes feel like they're talking directly to me as well. So
that actually makes complete sense, David.
doesn't it? Yeah.
Where you would be stuck in that realm where you can't switch off because you want to still be connected to that person that's passed on in that way.
Many of us that lose a loved one, like we never ever want to be disconnected from them in the physical sense, but unfortunately, life does have other plans and journeys for us. So we would want to spend all our time with them, of course, because we love them and they love us.
So you're obviously dealing with people a lot of the time who are possibly grieving. How do you deal with that? How do you support them through that?
Yeah. I mean, it really is such a vulnerable, really special position that we can be in when I do sit down with a client. And, something, as I said, that is, it's very personal and it's very raw and emotional. And, my perspective, when I'm able to sit down with them, it is coming from a complete place of, again, wanting to support them, wanting to guide them. And I am the medium, like I am technically the middleman, essentially. So it is all about being very just open and providing that safe space for people to be very raw and emotional as well. And for them to be able to lean into it, and me to be able to lean on them with just elements of support. And the thing is as well, I think spirit puts up a lot of sort of boundaries around it as well, because for me, when I do days where I read people, I can read anywhere from 3 to 5 people a day on average. By the end of the day, I actually won't remember who I've read in the morning. And if I do remember who they are, I won't remember a word I've said to them. So it's kind of like a bit of a blockage, because the messages aren't mine to say, because they don't come from me directly. They don't stay with me either. So that's kind of a good sort of spiritual boundary and a bit of a cleanse as well, because the emotional side of things and the connective side of things, I'm able to pass on in a really loving sort of diplomatic way to whoever I'm reading for, but that's their message to keep and their message to hold on
Yeah,
to.
you're almost just that channel in between.
Literally just the channel. Yeah, the middleman, the medium. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Do you remember any readings at all that stuck with you throughout your career?
There's always those really funny circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, as morbid as it sounds, even when people cross over in really bizarre ways, like you always remember, things that are personal to me as well. When I was working in legal, I was working in counterterrorism, and I have connected with people that have passed in terrorist attacks, for example. So, I've read for some people that had loved ones in the September 11 attacks. I've read for people that had loved ones that were killed in the Bali bombings. And those ones will always stay with me, because they were situations that I remembered myself and situations that were very personal to me already. So again, it's a real honor and a privilege to have those personal connections to that, to then be able to pass on those messages to someone else as well. But yeah, there are some really, like, to be, not to be disrespectful, but people die in some very bizarre ways. Like, and you'll never forget that. Like, there literally is someone that I've read that actually had slipped on a banana peel and hit their head. Like, I didn't think that was a thing, but people have slipped on banana peels, things like that.
Oh, wow. Unbelievable. I'm taking a quick minute to interrupt this life-changing conversation to let you know about something exciting I have created. You might know I'm incredibly passionate about helping people and brands to find and share their voice, especially if that voice is one that aims to create positive change in others. And I've launched a podcast network with purpose. It's called the Guide Your Light Network and features podcasts and voices that inspire, educate, and transform listeners. And we have a library of podcasts that are part of our network that truly embody that mission. And we're looking for more. If this has sparked interest in you and you're curious about what it takes to spread your vision and mission on a deeper level, whether you're a purpose-led brand or individual, click the link in the bio and book a call with me to uncover how we can bring purposeful podcasting into your world. Just head over to theguideyourlightnetwork.com or click the link in the show notes. Well, this is just fascinating. So I didn't think I wanted to be greedy today, because I've got a billion questions for you, but I asked a number of my listeners if they had questions, and actually some of them are quite hilarious. So I want to just flick them out to you and get your answers, because it's quite interesting to see what people want to know from one of the world's leading psychic mediums. So number one, have you ever used your psychic abilities to pick up?
Honestly, I think it works against me. Like, you can tell people that you're a medium, and like, that's not really the pickup point that you would expect it to be, because most guys, like, I'm a gay man, and most guys maybe don't have experience with it, like we're saying, and they kind of look at you like, oh my God, like, what the fuck? Like, this is a little bit weird. Like, so I would love it to be able to help me to pick up, but I think thus far it maybe has been a bit of a hindrance. But here's hoping 2024 is a new year.
Exactly. I love that. All right. So can you use your abilities for personal gain? Similar question, but I suppose for a different element in terms of protecting yourself or making money or strengthening your career, maybe?
I think it has heightened my own sense of intuition and gut feeling about what's the best path that I can take for certain things. So I think in that sense, it has sort of heightened my ability to be more successful, not only just with business, but just in general life. I've always had a very good intuition about, rental properties, for example. Like, I can look at a property and be like, yeah, that's mine. And you just know. So that helps provide a sense of clarity and calmness in some ways with situations where usually I would be panicky or a bit unsure. Like my intuition is so strong that I just kind of know how things will go. In terms of business, it has just helped. I just instinctively know what I feel like will help people. So to be able to create sort of the profile that I've created, because it was never planned or anything like that. I never expected to be, David the medium in inverted commas. But I understand that there is such a curiosity around it, and I love talking about such unique and different topics. But I think I've got to, not to pat myself or blow my own trumpet or anything like that, but I think I've got an ability to really create mediumship to look very mainstream and to help explain it to people in a certain way that if you don't have experience with it, it will help you understand it a bit better, or sort of provide a bit more sort of light onto it in a real sort of mainstream way. So I think that's been a big skill, because it's also helping me learn at the same time as well.
But you can't choose a Tats Lotto numbers.
If I could, I'd be in Maldives right now, that's for sure. But but I am also good at sometimes, well, not sometimes, because I've done it the last 3 years, but predicting the winner of the AFL Grand Final. But the thing is, I need to be putting money on it.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, in saying that about Tats Lotto numbers, my partner dreamt numbers and the next day went and placed those numbers, and he couldn't remember the last number. So he made up the last number, and 5 of the numbers that were in the dream, except the one that he couldn't remember, came up. So I think he won $3,000 or $4,000, but could not remember that last number. It's crazy.
And this is the thing, like if you're dreaming Tats Lotto numbers, it's like flexing that muscle again.
Yeah.
Trust it. Put them on Tats Lotto, put them on the Powerball. Like the universe and your loved ones and spirit are showing you for a reason.
Yeah, there you go. All right, that's interesting as well. A lot of people are scared to get readings. They're afraid that they might get bad news. And I suppose that this question is coming from that. Will you tell people really bad news if it's not going to serve them?
Yeah, so I very, very early on in my career decided that it wasn't for me to filter anything. I have to say it exactly how Spirit would want to say it. Now, Spirit is never overtly negative, and they will never overtly give you just bad news and leave it at that. If anything that has a negative connotation is brought up, it's always with the aim of how we can work through it, how we work around it, how we best cope with it. Spirit, one question that a lot of people always have around negative news as well is like, oh, I don't want to know if I'm going to die or someone's going to die. Spirit will never tell you anyway. Like I've read for people that have been terminally unwell, and Spirit's never said to them, okay, well, you're going to pass in October. Because it's simply not for us to know. Like everything before that moment matters, and everything after that moment matters. The physical element of death itself is irrelevant to Spirit. So I can appreciate and understand sometimes the nervousness or the scaredness around it, but Spirit is never overtly negative. And I'm always a bit wary of mediums that can be like that, to be very fair.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And comforting too, David.
Yeah, I hope so.
Maybe. Yeah. Have you ever helped police investigators with cases that they can't crack or solve?
Not dealing directly with the police. I have helped in a missing a persons search before. And this was down here in Victoria. I won't, for privacy reasons, I won't give his name, but it was a young boy that did go missing. And some of my clients were actually in the search party. And it had been a few days and they were all out of options. And they just said, well, anything that you can say is better than what we've got now. And was able to sort of provide looking at a map, what I thought would be because I could hear running water in my head. So I kind of looked on the map, found where there was a river, maybe downhill paths. And he was found in that area, but they were sort of looking through there when they hadn't really looked before. So I'm definitely not taking credit for finding them because they did all the hard work, but that sort of guidance definitely came from Spirit. And I have worked with families themselves, but it's only when they've unfortunately known that their loved one has been killed or, has died in certain circumstances. And it's really Spirit sort of helping them fill in the missing blanks with certain things. But I'm definitely open to working to the police. It is a lot more widespread than maybe people would know. My mentor, for example, worked directly with the police in the 1990s. And I know already that there is mediums that do work behind the scenes with different police forces and organizations within Australia. And it's also very common in Europe as well. Like, for example, Russian police and authorities openly admit to using psychics. You know, that's the thing. So I think it can be a little bit taboo and a little bit sort of different in that sense because of maybe people's lack of understanding or lack of opinions, or because they do think it's a little bit, you know, left of center. But that's part of my overall thing. I do want to bring it more mainstream, so then people do have a greater understanding about what it sort of entails and what it has the ability to be able to help. That's the most important thing of all.
Wowza. Yeah, we've had other psychics on this show. I wonder if it's your mentor. Debbie Malone, was she your mentor by any chance?
A different Deb, but I do know Debbie Malone.
Okay. Yeah, just curious. And yeah, she has obviously worked with police investigations a lot, but it's always been kept on the down low. And
Yeah.
let's not promote the fact that we're doing this, but if it helps us get answers, then bonus.
Absolutely. And I think from a mediumship perspective, like personally, I actually don't know whether I would want to be the public figured medium helping the police, because I don't want all the attention put on me, especially when it comes to, you know, criminal cases or missing persons cases. Like the focus shouldn't be on us. It should be only on the information that we can provide. So in that sense, I really do appreciate maybe it being behind the scenes, because it's not something that necessarily needs media attention or public focus put on, if that makes sense. The public attention, the media focus should be put on the cases or the missing people. Like that's the most important thing of all. But it is definitely a lot more widespread than maybe people would realize.
Okay. A big question that has come through is what happens when we die? Where do we go? What's it like? How do we feel?
Well, there's a lot of different views on this and a lot of different perspectives. In my own experience in dealing with spirits, as I said, I wasn't necessarily raised with a higher power belief or religious values instilled within me. But what I have come to learn and understand from the work that I do is that it really is what I would call the version of heaven. Everybody ends up in what I call the waiting room, because I also don't believe that it's the final resting spot for the soul. But once we leave Earth, we go to a place that is just incredibly euphorically blissful, completely at peace. Everybody that we know and love is all together again. And it's just the soul returning to its natural state. We're completely free from any human negativity, human ailments, human emotions. You know, the negative side of the human experiences is completely disappears. And if that's not heaven, then I don't know what is. Heaven's a great way to describe it. But as I mentioned, I don't believe that it is the final resting place for the soul either. Once we do connect back with our natural state, there's still lessons to learn. There's still ways in which we have to evolve. I'm a very strong believer in reincarnation, and I do believe that all of us have been on Earth before at some stage. And timelines are very fluid as well. So it doesn't mean that we were always in the past. Maybe we were born into the future. Who knows? It's one of these things. But there's, you know, a lot of different opinions and a lot of different people's personal experiences. And the way that I answer that question, it's sort of like, that's my understanding. I'm not sure. One day we'll all find out ourselves.
Wow. Is there, in your opinion, a hell?
Well, the controversial way of answering that question, a lot of people that have believe that Earth can be a version of hell.
Well, it can sometimes, can't it?
Exactly. And this is the thing, because unlike the afterlife, the experiences that we can go through on Earth, the emotions, the things that happen to us, the things that happen to the collective, can be very negative, can be very hard, very taxing and trying and emotionally exhausting on us. So in that way, I think that Earth can sort of be the real big test. And a lot of mediums and a lot of people with spiritual sort of educational understanding have always kind of looked at Earth in that way, because it is quite a challenge. Doesn't mean that it's a terrible place. I mean, we've all got such amazing things happening in it as well. But in the version of hell being internal damnation and, you know, the devil being down there with spiky horns, I don't necessarily believe in that. Again, it's not for me to say that it isn't real, because again, I haven't had personal experience with it, and I definitely don't connect with any energy that would be in a place like that. But I think the soul itself always has elements of redemption, and I don't believe that any one soul would ever sort of be a lost cause per se. So it wouldn't belong in a place or an imagination that we picture hell to be.
So, do you think the meaning of life is to come here and experience lessons that we had set out to experience?
Hmm. I mean, it is really the biggest question we all have at the end of the day.
It
When
is, yeah. So
what
it's
is the
interesting
meaning
to.
of life? And it seems like such a simple question that sometimes you can even scoff at or laugh at. But the more that you think about it, the more that you end up in existential crisis, thinking, "Oh my God, well, what is the meaning of life?" And exactly, I think life, from my perspective, is classroom for the soul. The soul has to come to this plane, realm, earth, whatever you want to call it, dimension, because it does have things that it needs to learn, it needs to experience, it needs to grow from and evolve from, just like us when we're in school. We study maths, English, history, and the soul studies relationships, growth, evolution. Everything is teaching us and everything is helping us in our journey to expand and evolve. So it is essentially a very complex, very huge classroom.
Asking the small questions here, aren't I?
Yeah, I know. I'm loving it though. It's great.
What's the meaning of life? Well, this is a smaller question. What is the future outlook of cryptocurrency?
Wow, I believe that people that got involved in cryptocurrency from the very beginning were the only ones that were likely to be successful with it. I think, and this is something that I have talked about on my own platforms, but Earth finds itself in the age of authoritarianism at the moment, which essentially means overt control, overt sort of censorship, all those kind of sort of negative control aspects. And unfortunately, cryptocurrency does not have the ability to be independent or necessarily successful in this environment. The premise and the idea of itself, I think, is a wonderful idea, and it definitely makes sense. But the powers that be, being controlling governments at the moment, very strong business influencers, will never allow cryptocurrency to be independent. And at the end of the day, okay, maybe it is a decentralized currency. You can't track it. What would happen if, hypothetically, and playing the devil's advocate, but I do also believe it could also be a possibility one day that the internet is completely shut down. And you're only allowed back on if you have an ID and every little keystroke and every little thing that you do is tracked. Then how does cryptocurrency remain independent? And how does it remain decentralized if every little thing is tracked? So it doesn't, unfortunately. Great premise, great idea. The people that have made money from it already have made money from it. I just don't see the viability or the long-term success in it moving forward at this point.
That is a mind-blowing statement that you just mentioned in regards to switching off the internet and only giving access, because, well, we have all become so reliant on using it for business and lifestyle and connection and anything, really. Like, there's nothing we can do now without connection to a Wi-Fi signal. So that's frightening a little bit. Can you give I know you give the collective predictions every year as well, and they're pretty frighteningly accurate. Are there things coming up for 2024 that you see at the moment that you could share with us?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to make everyone be like, oh my God, why did he have to say that? But, 2024 is, again, a very sort of chaotic year. And, first and foremost, I want to phrase that by saying that nothing controls us unless we allow it to control us. We all have free will. We all have the ability to adapt to certain circumstances. That unfortunately, there are things that we can't control. But if we can't control it, then we shouldn't allow it to control us either. But the themes for next year are, again, sort of with the age of authoritarianism as well. Now, there's a lot going on around the United States. And I find every year that the US has its presidential election, and the whole world usually goes haywire beforehand anyway. But I have made the prediction that modern day United States will probably have its toughest year in its modern history in terms of social unrest, breakdowns of structure, political wars going on, the loss of leaders as well. I mean, they are trying to persecute Donald Trump, who is likely to be the Republican frontrunner. Joe Biden is unfortunately suffering from severe sort of mental cognitive decline health issues, which is becoming more and more apparent the more that people pay attention to it. So, that in itself is going to set the stage for an explosive year. One prediction that I've been really talking about since very early 2019 was what I call the rise of the dragon. And the spiritual dragon does represent modern day China. And that begun in 2019. Unfortunately, also when COVID begun at the end of 2019, and obviously we all know how that went into 2020 and beyond. But next year, the dragon stops rising because in 2024, the dragon is risen. So the 5-year journey there will see China culminates in probably becoming a little bit more sort of brazen or a lot more sort of controlling themselves. Such a powerful country in the world with not only a huge economy and a huge social impact, but also a very large military as well. So it'll be very interesting to see how the dragon chooses to maybe start flexing its own muscles. One thing that I've predicted from the very start is on the unfortunate invasion of Taiwan. Whether that occurs next year or not remains to be seen at this stage, but that is definitely a theme. And in general, we also do face, it sounds so negative, doesn't it, when I keep talking about it, but in general, we do face sort of the unfortunate continuing economic realities. The inflation rate will still remain stubbornly high. The prices of everything aren't coming down. The cost of living, as everyone in Australia has seen at some level or another, has become very unsustainable. As we all are very well aware as well, the property market is incredibly overpriced. It's not dropping. So these are all sort of culminating together with a very unstable world and a very unstable economy. The impact that will have on our daily life. Health and wellness also becomes a very big focus in 2024 again. There could, again, unfortunately, I'm not suggesting that COVID necessarily makes a return, but there can, again, be some very strong health issues that would become very prevalent in 2024. I'm not suggesting the pandemic, but it has pandemic energy around it again. And unfortunately, we also do see the rise of social unrest and the return of mass casualty terrorism as well. In mixed with social unrest and sort of economic unrest and all that as well, unfortunately, that will always rise up. So it sounds negative. COVID was also sounding negative if we put it all on paper as well. Now, it was a very difficult experience for everyone during the pandemic, but we all got through it. And it's all about adaptation and realizing your own inner strength, your resilience, and your own determination. So when we are put in situations that are unfortunately very chaotic and out of our control, it doesn't mean that we become chaotic and out of control as well. It's showing that inner strength and that resilience and that intelligence that we all possess and we all have to adapt and persevere.
Wow. Well, what about home shores? What about Australia? Can you see anything specifically for the country we live in?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, there's just it's all the sort of external events that will sort of shape Australia as well. So anything that happens in the United States inevitably reverberates around the world. And we all know that from a social, political, and even pop culture standpoint, but especially from a spiritual standpoint as well. So Australia will, unfortunately, as I mentioned, sort of go through a lot of sort of tougher economic realities again. It does feel very immune from a lot of what still happens at the same time. But again, if China becomes more of a flexing power and possibly even a hostile power, the impact that would have on Australia as well. It is our biggest trading partner. It is a big social connection for us. There's a lot of Chinese Australian citizens. So that can sort of create social disconnect as well at the same time. But Australia, for the most part, we sort of see a very big sort of switch in government kind of energy as well. So the federal government, I can't remember when our next federal election is, but we sort of do see the decline of Anthony Albanese in some ways as well. His spiritual energy for 2023 was stepping into his power, and he stepped into his power. It unfortunately has not worked out well for him. So 2024 can see a lot of sort of a very common theme within Australia anyway, unfortunately, but a lot of instability around political structure. Australia always, as I mentioned, does feel separate, even though we're so connected from everything as well. But economic realities are a point. Terrorism, unfortunately, could hit Australian shores again, and it is the rise of weather events as well. So I know a lot of people in Northern Australia have seen it already, but the temperatures are incredibly hot. One of the themes for 2023 that I predicted was the rain turning into the fire. And El Nino has essentially been talked about and really kind of confirmed unofficially in a lot of ways as well. But 2024 will sort of see the climate again getting quite dry and hot, and unfortunately the natural disaster risks associated with that predominantly being bushfires and drought as well.
David, you're scaring me.
I know, but every time I talk about it, I was like, everyone's always like, why can't you talk about something nice? And I'm like, well, the world has been a little bit upended lately. This is the thing. But again, it's, and you make a very good point, because even talking about it, I'm like, well, these things are scary. People do feel anxious by this. People do feel a little bit, fearful of this. And that's, again, the most important lesson. When we are feeling fearful, when we are feeling anxious, when we are feeling scared by anything, it's the remembrance that we're allowing these emotions to take control of us. And, a lot of us do it without thinking twice about it, because it is a natural reaction to hearing things that can be a bit off-putting. But it's, again, remembering we all have the power to control our own lives. And even though these events happen, we can't control them. It's all about how we adapt to it and create our own sort of positive reality around them at the same time as well.
Good words to close that off. One last question, because you mentioned the property market. Where do you see Australian interest rates going? Are people expecting more and more hikes, or are you seeing
it's
flooding in
very, very fluid energy. It won't surprise me at all if there is maybe a few more hikes, but any sort of cuts made to interest rates that could possibly happen next year, I'm not necessarily predicting it, but it wouldn't necessarily be because it would be the right economic thing to do. It's probably just because of social and political pressure that they would do it. So interest rates, unfortunately, are going to remain stubbornly high, I would suggest, and possibilities within the first 6 months of next year, probably maybe even going a little bit higher again. So again, unfortunately, the huge impact that has not only on mortgage holders, but also the family budget, and the inflation is obviously the key part there. They're trying to really stem the drastic price increases that we've all seen really since COVID. But I think everyone can admit the last sort of 6 months of 2023, like, prices just seem to go through the absolute roof on everything. So that's something that really needs to be sort of reined in and taken under control. But, unfortunately, the economic situation doesn't improve. And it does come down to also bad central planning as well. Like we all saw it, unfortunately, during COVID with a lot of the state and federal governments. Their words, spending like drunken sailors. We're now seeing the economic impact of bad decisions that were made, in my opinion. But, reality also sort of is the judgment there.
I am a glass half full type of gal. So can you share with us any light news, any positivity from what as well, just to throw it in the mix? And
you're like, Dave, give me something. Give
us something.
No, well, I think we'll see.
No, he said no, guys.
No, sorry, that's on. We'll have to do that next podcast.
No joy for you.
No, it is all about, I think, especially from the medical perspective as well. I mean, to sort of go into that, there is something about cures around cancers around the skin. So whether we'll sort of see some really good skin cancer treatment, skin cancer cures, but I think the medical space in particular, also through the use of artificial intelligence as well, because that's also a massive theme for next year, the rise of artificial intelligence. Like, we've definitely seen that over the last 12 months, but that goes to a next level next year as well. So the mix of Western medicine advancements mixed with artificial intelligence, I can predict we'll see some really sort of great outcomes in terms of not only being able to treat certain illnesses, but also possibly be able to prevent or cure certain illnesses as well. There's also a lot around blood with that as well. So we may start seeing some advancements and, fingers crossed, some cures or very effective treatments for blood-borne diseases. Ones that come to mind are ones like diabetes, HIV, even blood-borne cancers, and sort of genetic abnormalities there as well. So this is the thing. I mean, the science and the medical world is, taking leaps and bounds as well. So there's always opportunity for growth and evolution in that space as well, which is always obviously going to be a positive to humanity.
I'm glad you brought up the AI element as well, because it's obviously something huge that's just come into our lives. Are you seeing that from a positive perspective? Are you feeling that's a positive perspective with AI, or do you feel a bit of both?
Marita, do you really want me to answer that question?
No, forget it. It's not going to be good, is it?
Humans should, in my opinion, not create something that is smarter, stronger, and can live without us. AI doesn't need us, so we're creating something that's top of the food chain. It's, it'll be very interesting to see how AI develops, but AI, I think once it becomes a bit too strong for its own good, it can start maybe impacting on our lives in ways that maybe we wouldn't have expected or necessarily desired.
Heard
All
it
about
here.
keeping the balance.
Yeah, balance is key. And I think some solid warnings in there too.
Use it to our advantage and use it to our benefit, but don't allow it to control.
Exactly. Well, it's been a strong theme actually throughout this conversation is the control element, I think. And if anyone can take anything away from that, it's not letting things control us and affect us, and learning to sort of just really tap into who we are and not be influenced too much by external indicators.
Absolutely. I mean, this is something that I posted on Instagram at the end of 2023 around my word for the year ahead, and it's all about adaptation, and it's all about not everything requires us to voice an opinion. Not everything requires us to get so down the rabbit hole with it. It's the element of taking it on board, learning your lesson from it, and adapting to it. But not everything requires your response.
Right. Amazing. All right. So you've agreed to do a little reading for me. Whether I share this or not is another interesting part of it. Depends on what's coming up. But how do you tap in? Do you need space to prepare for that?
Well, Spirit knows why that we're here for that opportunity as well. So really, I mean, even when we were talking about it before, when you were like, can we do it? I'm like, absolutely. So Spirit already was like, yeah, this is why we organized it. Now let's tune in, shall we? Now, what I do mention as well, especially for people that I read for that do have a public profile, or anyone in this world, because social media is a thing. Of course, there are things that are brought up in readings that people can Google about you, people can see on TikTok, on Instagram, and Facebook, and all that as well. But from my perspective, 95% plus of readings are things that we do keep private, or things that relate to personal relationships with people and things like that as well. So it's always very fascinating. But otherwise, let's jump straight into it as well, because we've got a very strong man coming forward instantly. And he's referencing the Greek flag, which would sort of reference Greek heritage. Do you have Greek heritage?
I do.
Wonderful. Yeah, cool. Because he's instantly jumping forward and he says, no, she wondered whether I was going to be here today. Even when she was talking about doing the podcast, I came into her mind. He does bring forward an older female with him, and this for me would connect to being your mother's parents, because we are coming down the female line here as well. Now, it is a very strong Greek name. Where does Eleni connect with you, Helen?
That's my mom.
Perfect. Good. I don't know why I sound surprised. I mean, because they're referencing Eleni. Now, your grandfather, for me, he's just knocking everyone else out of the way, because he instantly sort of comes forward. He's so proud, because he says, so actually, good question, Merit. Have you ever had a reading before?
I have, not many times, but I have, yes.
He says that he's so grateful to be able to talk. So usually for me, that can be when we've had readings, but maybe we haven't heard from certain people before, or they never really had the opportunity to talk in this way before. So he does reference, unfortunately, passing quite a longer time ago. So I don't doubt that you've had readings since then. But he does call himself Babu, which is, I know, is the Greek grandfather, but he says that's what she calls me. He calls you Kukla, which is doll, but he sort of puts his arm around you. And he says, no, her and her sister. Oh, you've got a sister?
Yeah, I do.
These are my girls. I'm so glad, Dave. He says, I don't know where to begin. He says, but you tell my family I'm back on my feet again. He says, towards the end of my time on Earth, he says, I couldn't breathe, like through here, Dave, through here. And I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know whether he had cancer, but he does unfortunately connect with cancer in the family circle there as well. It's not a warning either. Anytime we do talk about health or anything like that, it's not saying that it's going to happen. These are things that unfortunately people have crossed from, or things that we know about already. But he is very strongly connected. He does look at you very much like the daughter, because there was a reference of not living together. Maybe you were living together, I'm not sure, but he references sort of being able to grow up with the girls. And he wants my daughter, your mum. She's been getting back pain or shoulder pain at the moment as well. And apparently she's putting too much pressure on herself. That's why she's feeling it through here. And He does look at you very much like a daughter. Like I said, it is a very strong sort of fatherly energy and spirit for you. I hate asking questions. Besides him, do you have like another father figure in spirit though? Because you've got a very strong sort of male, besides your grandfather here, that is sort of really sort of circling around you and wanting to hug and hold on to you as well. Where does the name Charles connect with you?
It's my husband.
Perfect. Okay.
But also his grandfather's name was Charles.
Perfect. Yeah, because I was about to say, because it may have to be in spirit, and your husband is Earth side.
He is, yeah.
He would have been the first one here if he wasn't.
Yeah.
So good news. Your husband is still with us on Earth. And did you have the opportunity to meet his grandfather? Because he is here anyway.
I did. Yeah.
Perfect. So it is very rare that grandparents of our partners will come forward unless they met you, but he was really making his presence clear. Now, and Charles, and the reference of, her father looks after, watches over. When did you last get to speak to your dad? Because they're referencing communication with your father.
Oh, I spoke to him yesterday.
Perfect. I'm not worried about your father at all, but they're referencing we watch over or he watches over. And one message, I mean, everyone's so excited because they keep sort of hugging you. They're like, hugging in. The reference in your mother-in-law, who, as a disclaimer, I met at Pilates.
She's beautiful.
Yeah, and she's definitely got parental energy as well, because I have to reference her being my daughter, but also Charles is my grandson here as well. So the thing that I love about you is when we connect from a spiritual perspective, your spirits are going non-stop like blah, 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 crazy, but you're also bringing forward your partner's family, which is really beautiful to do that early on, because it essentially symbolizes for me that they look at you like their girl as well. And as soon as I said that, it goes, well, she's been with him forever, which would probably be your husband. How long have you and your husband been in a relationship for? Because it feels like more than 20 years, really.
Over 25 years.
Oh, wow. Over 25. I was going to say, okay.
We met in our teenage years.
Oh, you're like high school sweethearts.
Yeah, yeah.
Were you actually in high school together?
No, end of high school. Yeah.
I love that. So you've known each other forever as well. Know that the family really does look at you as their circle as well, because the most beautiful thing here as well, when spirit comes forward, this is mum's side, this is dad's side on my right-hand side, and partners' families come forward in front of me. Yours are all meeting me in the middle, which means that even if they never met each other earth side, they are all together in spirit as one whole family. And looking after your mum again as well. I'm not worried about your mother at all, but they're very drawn into Eleni and the elements of how she honored us, especially her father, because there's the element of taking care of their parents or looking after them towards the end of their time in the physical world, and really how grateful they are for that. Where's Evie, Eva, something like that as well?
My sister's Evelyn.
Evelyn, perfect.
But yeah, I have Eve in my life as well.
Yeah, that's the thing, because nothing against Evelyn, because they're referencing her as obviously the younger girl as well. But where does Eve connect, if you don't mind me asking? Because I'm probably more drawn into Eve, Evie, Eva kind of sound.
I feel like I know what you're going to say. It's my sister's best friend and a good friend of mine. Perfect.
She's got a very strong spirit around her that I do want to connect in with, because I have to. God, you're really bringing forward messages for everyone today. Because when I look at Eve, it's a reference of like, we've got her, Dave. I don't want her to worry. I don't want her to stress. It's sort of like we're watching over, we're guiding her. She's got some bad news recently. Or sort of, not, I mean, it sounds negative when you say it like bad news, but they're sort of wanting to reference it. It's again, she's stronger than anything else. I don't want her to feel weighed down. Let her know that I'm okay. Did she unfortunately lose a parent or someone like, yeah?
She just lost her dad.
So sorry to hear that, because it's just this overwhelming feeling of like, I have to reference her as like my baby.
Wow.
So,
oh my God, I have full body goosebumps.
So sorry to hear, and that's him hugging you as well, actually, because I've got goosebumps down my arm. So I can only imagine you may know of him or met him even, of course, because he kind of just, when you felt the goosebumps, I think probably on your left side, because I'm feeling it on my right, because it's the arms coming around. Wow. But she's had some, even as he was validating, she's had some terrible news and some terrible things lately. But unfortunately, with her father crossing over, all that everyone up here keeps saying to her is like, you must tell her, I love. So he would love to pass on the message of love to his daughter, and the complete element of being so free from anything that I went through, and I don't want to, and I don't feel weighed down anymore. He does sort of have a bit of a longer term health journey towards the end of his time on Earth. I'm not sure whether it was him. My arm actually got sore though. Who unfortunately in your circle had heart issues or a heart attack? You can't connect instantly though, don't worry. It's not a warning either, but I'm just getting sharp pains through my
my
side.
grandfather on the other side did.
On dad's side. Okay.
Yes.
So that's him making his presence clear as well. So this is what makes sense actually, because it's all the fatherly energies coming forward. But especially to your friend, her dad really does want to take the opportunity just to let her know that he's completely, well, in his words, he says, I've made it.
Oh.
Which would be sort of like making it to the other side, but he's got a very sort of happy, released energy about it. And I know you mentioned, unfortunately, he recently passed, but it is a very strong parental love for her. And, you know, through the terrible circumstances that she's going through, she's still doing everything right. Because Eve is apparently second guessing things now, like, oh, I wish I did this, or I wish I did this, or why didn't I do this? I wish I said it. And he's like, stop it. It's like everything you are doing, you did right. He says, please tell her that it's Christmas soon. He said it so casually. He's quite a handsome man as well.
She'll love to hear that so
yeah,
much.
kind of like, but definitely sending love to his kids as well. So that would symbolize that she has sibling or sibling energy. Yeah, the gentleman with a heart attack. It's sort of like everyone's sort of taking like 10-second turns to talk to you. I kind of love it. They're all so excited that you're here. Looking after your girls. Did we mention daughters for you before?
No.
Okay, so you've got daughters.
I do.
Perfect. Yeah. I don't feel a son. Do you have a son?
No. I don't have a son.
If you do, no one in spirit likes it. No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
They're only referencing the girls. You have a medium in your house. Going into your beautiful daughter energy here, I actually can't work out which daughter it is, and I think it actually could be both. Probably but your eldest daughter is so sort of emotionally mature, but your youngest daughter is very intuitive. But now I feel like it may be the older daughter. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. If I said to you, which one of your daughters do you feel like has a natural sort of ability? Don't tell me names. Which daughter would you indicate? Daughter 1 or daughter 2?
You know, I feel exactly like you do. I can't choose.
I actually can't work it out. And here's me being like, oh, but then
because
I'm like,
I see little elements of both in them that it could be. I couldn't choose either. That's why I was really curious to see what you were going to say.
Your youngest daughter would be older than 7, though. Is that correct?
That's right.
Because I always say children up until the ages of 7 aren't human. Like, they're really not. They're souls in the human world, but they don't have social conditioning. They don't have ego. They don't have anything like that. But after 7, they become a bit more human. Your youngest daughter, for me, though, has a very young at heart energy, but she's completely here for the human experience. Your eldest daughter is a very natural healer kind of energy. Even as I said that, my whole chest went tingly. So she's got a very strong emotional connection with being able to sort of understand people very well. And I think her emotional sense, especially as she becomes an adult and, you know, an older girl here, is all about being able to heal people. But she's very fun at the same time. Like, it's a real interesting mix with both the girls. But, you know, if it's meant to be, I don't doubt that their journeys will evolve in a lot of ways. But I kind of want them to, like, practice. You know, we've had this conversation on your episode, but I kind of want the girls to now do it. But it's a reference of any of the girls, the clothing label. Does that make sense? The first clothing label that comes to my head is Louis Vuitton. I don't think any of the girls are Louise or Louis.
No.
The eldest. What's your eldest daughter's name, if you don't mind me asking?
Zara.
Zara, the clothing label.
Oh,
I didn't even pick up on it as well, because I was thinking,
crazy. Stop. Now that you say that, when she was younger, she would literally carry a little baby doll around and tell us that the doll was sending her messages, and that my mother-in-law actually had lost a baby in between a couple of her son's births, and she said that there's a girl called Tina talking to her, and she was carrying this baby around. So when she was younger, she'd say a lot of things like that. But she doesn't anymore, and whether it's just a, like you said, past 7 years old.
Yeah. I think, it's such a great example because, even as we were talking before, every single person has the ability. We're all souls in the human form having this experience. It's very, very natural within your daughter, and she's already showed the family that she can connect in such a natural, unassuming way. So with, I was going to call it the clothing label, with Zara, with the clothing label girl, with Zara, she feels like such a Zara as well. Like it's a perfect name for her. I don't know. It feels like I'm sure you love it as well, but it's just like but it is very, very natural within her. Now, nothing against her other daughter, because like I said, she's definitely got a uniqueness to her, but I think Zara is probably my strong one now, I would say. There's a reference of branching off into adulthood, but Zara for me doesn't feel 18 or 21. How old's Zara now?
14.
Oh, so she's okay. So branching off into teenage years. She's very mature for 14. Usually 14-year-olds are quite scary. She's very straight down the line and quite mature. So credit to her because it's an incredible tough time. And I don't think any of us want to be 14 again. So I just think humor her. Like if she's she may randomly say to you, well, not randomly because they're all nodding. So over the next few weeks in particular, she may bring up dreams that she's having of loved ones in spirit, or even older family members, or she may reference that she's feeling things or sensing things. Encourage her to talk about it. Encourage her to delve into it, to not be afraid of it, because even as a teenager, it can be a very daunting thing as well. The biggest thing for everyone is to realize it's not supernatural, it's just actually supernatural. We embrace the natural side of it, the more mainstream it can be of benefit to us. But I've got no concerns at all for your daughters. The property man, is that your husband?
Yes. This is crazy.
He's the only man in the physical world we've brought up, so he has to be the property man. He's got a massive change in perspective or journey next year in particular. So you don't tell me, I mean, he's, property is a big umbrella, of course, but don't tell me what he's doing directly. He really should be in property development if he hasn't done that already, or unless he's doing that right now. What's he doing right now, if you don't mind me asking?
Property development.
After I just said, don't tell me anything, I'm like, what's he actually doing?
Yes.
So he's in property development. Perfect. But everyone up here, like every time I tune out, they just keep hugging you. Like it really is quite beautiful. Like all these arms just keep wrapping themselves around you. You were very, I know it sounds so corny coming from me, but very divinely guided and protected by spirit. They're thankful for their relationship with you and thankful for still talking to us and about us as well. They said, never get a tattoo. I don't think it's something you're planning for. That was your couple.
On my
mum's dad.
Mum's dad. That's funny.
And all the grandparents are making their presence clear. Dad's side's very present, but they're all kind of sitting there, but everyone's talking on their behalf, but they're very, very present at the same time. All they said is anything that she wants, Dave, just tell her to ask us. We've always got her, and the best is yet to come. So it's a reflection on everything you've been able to achieve, all your successes, everything that you're doing. Family life is obviously the most important thing, but it's sort of like you've only just begun. So you tell us what you want next. Any questions?
Wow, that is mind-blowing. You are good, David.
They kind of just went bang, bang. That was they were just like constant. They were like bang, 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 bang. Yeah.
Yeah, it almost feels like a reunion. That felt like a reunion with them. And I kept wanting to say, oh, I haven't seen them for so long. I haven't seen you for so long. That's what kept coming up for me. I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. Do you connect with animals at all? Can you see
animals? Will come forward when you start talking about animals. Animal spirits are my favorite.
Okay, so I'd love to see if there's any animals around.
There's already, I actually thought it was a cat, but now it's got a bit more of a sort of boyish energy. It's kind of like a dog that's a bit of a sook. Their words, not mine.
Yes.
Because I kind of thought it was a cat something, but it was a dog energy at the very start. I'm like, what? There's instantly I don't know whether this is your dog or whether it was a family dog, but it kind of looks like there's like a poodly Maltese kind of dog.
Yeah,
Like a little
Maltese.
white one.
Little white Maltese. Yep.
Your dog?
That's our dog. Yeah.
Oh, in spirit.
Yeah, he just passed.
Animal spirit always makes me more sad than humans. And I know you mentioned he, because he's got this very sort of boyish energy to him, but he's very sweet. Like he's got a very sort of loyal. I mean, all dogs are just the most amazing creatures anyway. But where we go with it as well, like I said, sort of this little dog that I suddenly thought was a cat because it had this real sort of cute sensitivity to him, but he's quite boisterous as well. He's so thankful. Now, when animals say thank you to me, it's because we were put in the, unimaginable position of unfortunately helping them cross over. So sometimes that can be when we, cared for them towards the end of their time on Earth, or we do unfortunately have to put them down. But he sort of references like, because kind of my back legs are sore. So like, I don't know whether he had sort of like arthritic energies or kidneys or something like that, but kind of my back legs are kind of going a little bit. Does that make sense with him?
His back legs went in the last few days and he couldn't
I'm
walk.
so sorry to hear that. And was he able to pass on his own, or did you unfortunately have to put him
It
down?
wasn't. Yeah, we had to help him, and
Yeah.
we feel a bit of guilt around that. So,
Well, I'm glad that we explained that beforehand, because like I said, he instantly wanted to say thank you. And when animals acknowledge, as I mentioned, when animals say thank you to me, it is 99 times out of 100, unfortunately, because we did have to help them cross over. All that he insists is that he says flat out, he says, Dave, it was the right thing. He says, I was ready.
mm.
And he says, I'm not that old, but he looks like an old dog. So, but it is this real true acknowledgement from him that, any issues that he faced were not going to get better. And it was all about sort of quality of life with my girls. Nothing against your husband, but he's referencing the three of you as my girls. And it was the right decision for me.
Amazing.
Because everyone up here just really does want to send their love. It's really, especially around this time of year, the Christmas, New Year period. It's just such a strong connective energy for spirit, because they want to show us that they're still a part of our life. And when we are celebrating and they're all sitting down together, they want us to know that they're still a part of that, and there's nothing that they're ever going to miss.
How beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Whoa.
Need a drink. That was like bang, 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 bang.
Absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, thank you so much. What a beautiful circle.
I got full goosebumps at every stage, and I feel so supported after that. That is absolutely blown my mind. Now I can see why you are one of the world-renowned psychic mediums. It's beautiful. That was a beautiful reading. Thank you. I always ask everyone on this show, and I'm fascinated to hear now that you're back and you're not channeling anymore, in your life, what's been something that you couldn't unhear and that created positive change or sparked something within you?
The biggest thing of all, and I heard this in my teenage years, is that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. And it instilled me with this power that, yes, I am the master of my own destiny, and I am the how my reactions are to certain circumstances and certain events and emotions really says everything, and it really helps dictate the pathways that I'm on. So it's really instilled me with, I think, a stronger mindset. And more of a drive, not only to be a better person, but also to leave wherever I am in a better place, whether that's connections with people or places. Like I just want to react in such a positive way that it leaves it a better way.
I love that so much. And it is so damn true, isn't it? We're gaining that control back by choosing the way that we react, and
reaction is everything.
Life control us. Yeah. You are a special human being.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to sit down with you as well.
Thank you so much for all of this today. You've impacted me more than you know. So I can't wait to share this out to our beautiful listeners and hear what they think about this as well. But everyone, they can connect with you. I'll pop all your links in. I know you have limited readings. You distribute times when they become available, but for the lucky few that get in, they're going to be absolutely wowed as much as I can. How else can people connect with you and find you if they're not having readings?
I appreciate that. Thank you. So it's all on social media. So my Instagram is @David the Medium, all one word. And the website, which you kindly mentioned, all readings are booked through, is no, it's not at David the Medium, it's at www.davidthemedium.com.
Thank you again, David. You're magic. And I can't wait to share this out with everyone. Thanks again.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to listen myself.
Thanks for listening to the show. What did you think? And what did you feel? Let us know by leaving me a message on the Things You Can't Unhear Instagram community page. And if you can, give us some ratings love on your favourite listening platform.